Hey everybody, this is Chris Kukla, and today we're going to talk about Tavish's theme for Project Greywater. If you're not familiar, it's a cool, fun, and exciting steampunk RPG coming to you soon. And this music accompanies Tavish, the protagonist of the story, with his dialogue, actions, or anything else. You can see actually in the top, it's the session is titled Real Tav Theme. The team and I went through a few, maybe like 5 or 6 iterations trying to really figure this one out. And for some reason, I thought that would be the appropriate file name. But what really stuck this one, in my opinion, is the percussion, which really not only added a cool element, but it was a big influence on the rest of the piece. So let's start with that. Take a look here. I'm already kind of zoomed in. When I was writing this, I was listening to other music which had some really cool found sound, odd percussion, and that inspired me to try a little bit of my own. So I found these sounds around the internet, which are a bit appropriate as Tavish wields a wrench as a weapon. And so what I did is I added all these into Ableton's drum rack after a little bit of clipping and such. I didn't end up using all of these. And they're all playable, which you can hear here. Oh, I'm just going to solo this for you. And it sounds like I also reversed one of those sounds as well. So what you're hearing here is this. There's a little bit of equalization to take out the high-end metally sounds, which were a little bit intrusive and unpleasant. Some saturation just to make things a little bit bigger. A little bit of compression to keep the volumes even. And on the group track here, we have more compression and this cool auto pan, which let's take a look at the next rhythm here. When I turn this off, you can hear how everything just moves to the center, or both speakers at once. But when I turn it on, if you're listening in stereophonic speakers, you can hear how things move around and just create this cool effect. These mostly stay constant for the majority of the song. But yeah, they're a little bit of sound design too, aside from percussion. There are other percussive elements here. But yeah, so I'm going to bring these back down to where I had them. Maybe a little bit more. And let's take a look at the rest of the instruments by starting at the beginning of the song. It begins, first of all, let's take a look. Everything else for this is done in contact. We have cellos, violas, violins, Highland pipes, those are bagpipes, Abbey Road's late 60s vintage drum kit, tuba, trombone, trumpet, timpani, and there's harp in here, but I never ended up adding the harp. I kind of feel like I want to go back and do that because I think it would fit well, but it just never came about. One side note as well, before we get into listening to everything else, you can see here I have the master track expanded. And one thing that's kind of neat about this that provides a sense of urgency and rushes things along a bit is that the tempo is constantly changing throughout the track. It begins, you can see in the top left corner, at 137 beats per minute. By this point, it is at 140 and some change. And then at the end, it's back down to 137 just to provide clean looping. So I kind of like that, and I think that works well. The piece begins with some pizzicato violins. And then these bagpipes come in, which don't change a lot either. They're panned hard right and left. They just provide a nice bed drone. And one thing I did is I took this MIDI here and I recorded it and pitched it down. Originally sounded like this. And so those play in unison in the left and right speakers. After that, these bass elements come in, which is the bassoon. Don't be fooled by these clip names. I drag and drop a lot. So, for instance, I think this will sound good on tuba. That'll go there, like that, and they retain the clip names. So this is actually tuba, not oboe, and this is actually bassoon, not oboe. Maybe I should get better about that, I don't know. But let's listen to how this sounds. They kind of just do like a repeating pedal tone sort of thing, and these are also panned hard left and right. And here the cello comes in, along with some pizzicato violas, just some quick runs, which also adds a little bit to that sense of urgency. And here comes the oboe, which is going to play the main theme. For this oboe and the bassoon, I used Contact as well. I used Berlin Woodwinds, a fantastic symphonic woodwinds library. And speaking of that, this reverb. I'm a huge fan. You can see there's this track, and also I have Valhalla Room. Open up. On the master as well. I'm a big fan, even though Sean spelled my name wrong. Valhalla Room is a fantastic reverb, and I advise anybody to go out and get it if they like reverb or music. So yeah, let's listen to this in context. So these bass elements here, the tuba and the bassoon, are kind of bouncing off this oboe, providing a little bit of contrary motion. And also you can hear the cymbals from this drum kit. I didn't use anything else aside from cymbals. Just a little bit of ride, and then you can hear crash later when the piece picks up a bit. So this B section repeats here. Trying to move fast. Brevity is our friend when it comes to audio production and music composition. So here everything drops out. The oboe joins in with this bass line. The cello doing a little bit of getting louder and some pitch bend. And here we have the horns coming in. We have trumpet playing the main theme, trombone just doing a descending legato thing. Trombone takes the main theme, and all the while oboe's playing, with it. And I'm gonna stop there. Typically with Contact, also the timpani's entered too, I forgot to mention that. Typically with Contact, you'll see here, I will route things out so they'll have a MIDI track and an audio track, so I can add things like Ableton's equalization. I tried gating these timpanis just because they were a little noisy, but it wasn't working out. You really have to fiddle around with gates, and I guess I wasn't in the mood, so I just took out a lot of high end. I compressed them, and I made them. You can see I used the utility. The width is at 200%. Which is probably very excessive, but I did it anyway. So I did the same thing for the trombone and the trumpet. I really like getting the horns out of Contact so I could pan them out here. They're pan slightly right and left, and also send them to more Valhalla Room, because that just it puts things in the right place in my ears. So I think I did that. Yeah, tuba as well. tuba, just a little bit of EQ, and there's the utility here to automate volume because the tuba takes the theme at the end. Very subtle. Track gets a little bit frantic at the end, even though the tempo is declining. Might be able to mess with this a little bit. One thing about sample modeling, who I typically use for solo horns, is this can be a little bit, can be a little bit touchy with picking up some of the data. Could even bring this up a little bit maybe. So, and this is how it ends. Just some cello and our percussion. If we loop it, you can hear that the violins come right back in. And that's about it. I think there's maybe still a few tweaks and stuff to be done on this. Additionally, on the master, a few things I didn't run over is there's a little bit of compression and 2 compressors here. What this does is just making sure everything's even, nothing jumps out too much, which really isn't a problem for this kind of music, but it's on there anyway. It just levels things out. Yeah, and I think I covered everything. So if anybody has any questions, thoughts, or ideas, or they'd like to know more about something, feel free to get in touch. And I hope to talk to you all soon. See you later.